Bonjour, I'm Jennifer, your French teacher in the south of France, and this is a lesson on the French verb falloir. I'm going to show you a few ways to use it, and if you stick around till the end, I will give you a quiz. So let's go. This verb can have several different meanings, and you can use it in lots of different ways, so you might want to get out a pen and paper and take some notes. You see here that I've written that falloir can mean to have to need, must, should, and you might tell yourself, well, hold on. I thought I learned that devoir means to have to, must, and should. And it does. This is just another way that you can say these things. And to need, yes, if you're thinking to yourself, I thought that that's when I'm supposed to say avoir besoin de, you're right, it is. We'll talk about all of that in this lesson. Okay, before we get started, remember that it only takes a second to show your support and become my patron on Patreon, and it's so appreciated. So just follow the link in the description below if you want to pledge any amount at all. Okay, one of the best things about this verb falloir is that it's an impersonal verb. And what that means is that you can only conjugate it in the il form. So you really don't have anything to learn except il faut. What I mean is you can't say je faut or tu faut or nous fallons or something like that. Those do not exist. And if you look this verb up, the conjugation, there won't be anything written where it says je, tu, nous, vous, and the plural il. Okay? So only in the third person singular is it conjugated. And it doesn't matter which tense you're using either. Today we're just going to talk about using il faut this way, the way you see it on the screen, and that's the present tense. But you can also use this verb in the passé composé, in the imperfect, in the future, and any other tense that you want to. All right, one easy way that I want to start out with is following il faut with a noun. This is very, very common. So, for example, if you say il faut un passeport pour voyager à l'étranger, it means you need a passport to travel abroad. You might also translate it as one needs a passport to travel abroad. And so I just wanted to point that out to you. We probably don't really talk like that too much, saying one needs a passport if one wants to travel abroad. But this verb falloir, when you say il faut, it can be used in a real impersonal sense like that. When I say you need a passport to travel abroad, I could be talking about anyone, okay? It's just a real general kind of statement. And I'm not necessarily saying you need a passport, you in particular, okay? So keep that in mind, and we'll see more of that as we go along, and in the quiz, there's a good bit of that. Okay, another way to use il faut is to follow it with a verb in the infinitive form. So try not to get too grammatical on you, but I have to use these words sometimes. Remember that the infinitive is just the verb in its full form before it's been conjugated. That's what I mean by that. So, for example, if you say il faut manger pour vivre et non vivre pour manger, it means that you must eat to live and not live to eat. You could also translate it by saying you have to eat to live and not live to eat. D'accord? Here's another example of following il faut with a verb in the infinitive form. Il faut commencer maintenant. Il faut commencer maintenant. Now, there are a number of ways to translate this one, and a lot of it depends on context. You could translate it by saying, we need to start now, or we have to start now. But you could also say it is necessary to start now. A lot of people like to translate il faut with it is necessary. Okay, that's not really how I would say it in English, though. How about you? I'd probably just say, we need to start now. Voilà, or you need to start now. Something that I'm just going to point out right now, because I told you that il faut can be translated, it is necessary. A lot of people who are learning French come over to France and they say, il est nécessaire, blah, 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 whatever. Or c'est nécessaire, blah, blah, blah. You don't say that. You don't need to say that. That doesn't sound right. It sounds I don't know, it just sounds weird. Instead of saying that, use il faut, okay? So this is really going to help you out. I'm telling you, a couple of things I'm going to show you today are going to make you sound a whole lot more French next time you come to France. Okay, now here is a really interesting way to use il faut. And at this point, you might want to start taking some notes because some of this might be really new to you, okay? But it's not complicated. I'm going to break it down and try to make it super simple for you. When you learned the verb avoir, okay, you know the verb to have, avoir, you probably learned the expression avoir besoin de. Did you learn that? That's the one that means to need. Literally, it means to have need of. So that's true. It does mean to need, and you can definitely continue using it. However, if you want to vary your vocabulary somewhat and at the same time sound a whole lot more French, you can start using il me faut instead of j'ai besoin de. J'ai besoin de, like I said, there's nothing wrong with it, but that's you learn that first because avoir is one of the first verbs that you learn when you start studying French. Okay, so it just makes sense to go ahead and learn avoir besoin de. And plus, we can translate that quite literally in English, and it makes sense. I have need of. But this one that you can't translate very well in English, il me faut, is definitely a better way to say it. Okay, so they mean the same thing. If you try to pick apart the grammar in il me faut, it won't translate very well to English. But in case you really want to know, the me, the me, me, it's an indirect object pronoun, okay? And this pronoun indicates the person who needs something. So in this case, I'm the one who needs something, so I used me. And in just a minute, I'm going to show you how to say you need, and he needs, and she needs, and all of that. But here's an example first. Let's imagine that I'm at the market and I need 500 grams of cherries, so that's about a pound, 500 grammes, all right? And the guy at the market might ask me, qu'est-ce qu'il vous faut aujourd'hui? Qu'est-ce qu'il vous faut aujourd'hui? And that means, what do you need today? So you see the vous in between the il faut, that means you. Now that's not where we would put it in English necessarily, but here's how you do it in French, okay? And I could answer by saying, il me faut 500 grammes de cerises. Il me faut 500 grammes de cerises. You see how that works? Okay, in all of these examples that I'm about to show you, I am going to put a noun after il faut so that you can see what that looks and sounds like. The first one, il me faut means I need, okay? Il me faut un nouvel appartement. Il me faut un nouvel appartement. So what do I need? In this case, a new apartment. The next one, I turned it into a question, and all you have to do is raise the tone of your voice. Why don't you practice reading it after me? Il te faut des œufs? Il te faut des œufs? Très bien, good. So I wanted you to repeat that one after me because that very last word, you know what it means? It means eggs, but it's not pronounced anything like the way that it's written. Des œufs. When it's plural like that, that's the way you have to pronounce it. You don't pronounce the F or the S, des œufs. Now, if it didn't have an S on the end of it and it was just one egg, you would say un œuf, un œuf. That's just a little side lesson for you, bonus. Alors, now the next one, when I wrote these, I meant, you see how I have them right next to each other? I meant for it really to mean to be the first one masculine and the second one feminine. So that's the way I'm going to translate them for right now. But then I'm going to show you some specifics about these two. So listen closely. The first one, il lui faut son maillot de bain. Il lui faut son maillot de bain. Il lui faut. That means he needs. So what does he need? His swimsuit. He needs his swimsuit. The next one, il lui faut ses baskets. Il lui faut ses baskets. Now I said that I wanted the second one to be feminine, but you notice that the first three words are exactly the same. Il lui faut. So she needs her sports shoes. The lui means she, and the lui can also mean he. So you really have to know the context in order to know how to translate these. The first one, il lui faut son maillot de bain, can mean either he needs his swimsuit or she needs her swimsuit. Now I know that that's confusing. How can il lui faut son maillot de bain mean she needs her swimsuit? Two reasons. First is because lui can be either masculine or feminine, right? The second one is the son, son. Remember that son has nothing to do with whether it's he or she. The son is there because the word that follows it, maillot de bain, is masculine, and it's a masculine word no matter who's wearing it, okay? And then the next example, il lui faut ses baskets, that can either mean she needs her sneakers or he needs his sneakers. We just have to see the context. All right, let's move on. Il nous faut une grande voiture. Il nous faut une grande voiture. Okay, so il nous faut, what does that mean? Il nous faut, we need. Il nous faut une grande voiture. We need a big car. Super. Il vous faut 3 euros. Il vous faut 3 euros. You need 3 euros. And then the very last one, il leur faut du travail. Il leur faut du travail. What does that one mean? Il leur faut. I bet you can guess. They need work. They need work, okay? Now, just before I move on to the next part of this lesson, let's look back at il lui faut, those two sentences that start out with il lui faut. Remember, whether it means he needs or she needs, it's not about the il. That il is impersonal when it comes before this verb faut. What means he and what means she is the indirect object pronoun lui. And that's why il lui faut can mean she needs, even though il, I just don't want you to get confused because a lot of times we look at il, and we say, okay, that's masculine. That means he. It doesn't. Not here. Not with il faut. D'accord? And so, il leur faut du travail, the very last one, it translates, they need work. And you might say, well, she made a mistake because il, she didn't put an S on it and she said they. That's true. I didn't put an S, but that's because il doesn't mean they. Il is impersonal. What means they in this sentence? Leur. And I know that's confusing. So, here, I've written these out for you. Maybe you can just memorize these. And later, in French, when you learn a little bit more about indirect object pronouns, this will make more sense. In the meantime, can you possibly just memorize these in this one particular context to mean il me faut, I need, il te faut, you need, il lui faut, il nous faut, il vous faut, and il leur faut, they need. D'accord? All right, so by the way, using this grammatical construction is a very clever way to avoid the subjunctive if you've not yet mastered that. I'll show you what I mean in just a second. And by the way, if you are curious about the subjunctive and if you are a little bit further along in your French studies, I have a comprehensive lesson on the subjunctive that will help you understand how to use it with il faut. D'accord? So you can just you can have a look at that lesson if you're ready for it. Voila. So now, let's have a look at this. Some more examples for you. These examples look a little familiar because I'm using the same examples that I used before. However, something is different. In all of these examples, I have thrown in a verb in its infinitive form after il faut so that you can see what that looks and sounds like. Okay? The first one. Il me faut chercher un nouvel appartement. Il me faut chercher un nouvel appartement means I need to look for a new apartment. So to look for, that's chercher, right? So you see how this changes the whole meaning. This really opens up the door to a lot of new things that you can say in French. What do you need to do? Not only what do you need, but what do you need to do? And what you need to do, that's the verb, okay? The second one, il te faut casser des œufs. Il te faut casser des œufs. Do you need to break some eggs? Il lui faut mettre son maillot de bain. Il lui faut mettre son maillot de bain. He needs to put on his swimsuit. Il lui faut porter ses baskets. Il lui faut porter ses baskets. She needs to wear her sneakers. Il nous faut louer une grande voiture. Il nous faut louer une grande voiture. We need to rent a big car. Il vous faut garder 3 euros. Il vous faut garder 3 euros. You need to keep 3 euros. And finally, il leur faut trouver du travail. Il leur faut trouver du travail. So what do they need to do? They need to look for work. Now, of course, if you wanted to, you could say il faut que, followed by another subject and the subjunctive. So like I said, if you're ready for that lesson, you can follow the link down in the description to have a comprehensive lesson on the subjunctive and il faut que. All right, so that's il faut and the verb falloir in a nutshell. Now, are you ready to take a quiz? If you're ready, you might want to get out a pen and paper and just be ready, have your finger on the pause button, because I'm pretty much going directly from the question to the answer, and I don't want to give you the answer before you're ready, okay? So here we go, numéro 1. How would you translate this? Yeah, this is going to be a quiz in which you need to translate from English to French. You need to translate. Maybe I could have said, il vous faut traduire. That would be nice. So here's the first one. He needs to leave. He needs to leave. Il lui faut partir. Il lui faut partir. Très bien. So he needs, il lui faut. Followed by an infinitive, partir. Super. Allez, here's the second one. You have to go to the Italian restaurant. You have to go to the Italian restaurant. You can change your tone of voice on these too. How would you translate that? There could be more than one way to do it. Aha, there is more than one way. If you said either of these, then bravo, très bien. The first one, if you're just being real general and saying, oh, you have to go to the Italian restaurant, you should go to the Italian restaurant, and you're not really talking about you in particular, you're making more of a general statement, then you can just say, il faut aller au restaurant italien. But if you are being specific and you're telling your friend you have to go to the Italian restaurant, that's when you can use the il te faut aller au restaurant italien. Okay, bien, on continue. She has to stay home tonight. She has to stay home tonight. Il lui faut rester chez elle ce soir. Il lui faut rester chez elle ce soir. Now, if you wrote à la maison instead of chez elle, that's perfectly fine, okay? You still get a big bravo. Super, il lui faut rester chez elle ce soir. Allez, on continue. You have to eat 3 meals a day. This you sounds kind of generalized to me. How about you? Either way, it can be general. You have to eat 3 meals a day. If you want, then that would be the il faut manger 3 repas par jour. Or if you're being more specific, talking to a particular person, il te faut manger 3 repas par jour. That sounds great. Super. Hang in here with me. We're almost done. You have to see this film. You have to see this film. il faut voir ce film. Or if you're being more specific, il te faut voir ce film. Bravo, bravo. Allez, they need to exercise. They need to exercise. Il leur faut faire de l'exercice. Il leur faut faire de l'exercice. Très bien. So remember, the word that means they is leur and not il. So hopefully you didn't put an S on il. Allez, you have to do your homework. You have to do your homework. Now, if you're being really general with this, you really do have to use this verb falloir, because when you use the verb devoir, it's more specific, and that's why we put a tu or a vous in front of devoir. But here with falloir, we just use the il. Il faut faire ses devoirs. Now, I used c'est because if I just say il faut faire ses devoirs, I'm being very general. I'm just saying in general, you have to do your homework. Like if you want to succeed at school, then you have to do your homework. General. So I used c'est. If I'm speaking to you directly, well, then I would use tes instead. Il te faut faire tes devoirs. Il te faut faire tes devoirs. Très bien. Now here's one for you. We need money. We need money. How do you translate that? Il nous faut, that's we need, il nous faut de l'argent. Super. Allez, you need a dog. You need a dog. Or here you could say, il faut un chien. Now, if I say, il faut un chien, that would be in the sense like, there's been some security problems in my neighborhood, and the police come around and they kind of tell everyone, all right, you need to get a dog to bark or something. That's being real general. Il faut un chien. You need a dog who will bark when the robbers come around or whatever, okay? That's very general. But if I'm talking to you, you specifically need a dog, then I could say, il te faut un chien, or il vous faut un chien. D'accord? All right, here comes the very last one. I have to sleep. I have to sleep. So how do I say I have to or I need? Il me faut, followed by an infinitive. Il me faut dormir. Il me faut dormir. Voilà. Très bien. I guess that's it for our lesson and quiz today. Please let me know if you have any questions at all. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, whether you're teaching yourself French or learning at school and you need a little extra help. I try to put out new videos every week, voilà, so you can be on the lookout for those. Also, check the links in the video description below to see all of the ways that you can connect with and support Love Learning Languages. Merci beaucoup et à très bientôt. Au revoir.